This is Tottenham Cemetery in North London, and you may know Tottenham probably for the famous football club here, the Tottenham Hotspur. This is the chapel of rest in the garden, two chapels, one on each side of the archway. Normally this was for Church of England one side and the dissenters, the nonconformists, on the other. You may hear some background noise. We are in North London and there are flights going over. This large cross, the inscription at the base reads Robert Rowley Chapman, born at Holyfield Hall, Waltham Abbey, 1827, died 1892, and he was a church warden of this parish for 29 years. This monument with the urn on top, and just beneath that you can see the peace dove facing downwards, and this is Benjamin Shipley Slipper, 1864, and if you look further down you'll see this is the family vault of Benjamin Shipley Slipper of Rotherhithe. A large one on the corner here, very prominent, and an interesting inscription on the side. Robert Eustace Peart, younger son of William and Alice A. Peart, accidentally shot while on active service as a cadet in the Artists' Rifles in France, age 26. Now, I've never come across the Artists' Rifles before, and presume it comprises people who were artists. I don't know. There is a lot to see. Difficult to know which side to start on. All sorts of shapes and sizes of memorial stones. Let me just pan round to the right. You can see it stretching away there. One here with the angel, Florence Grace Reed. Fell asleep in 1928. If I move along, passing the large cross, this one has got two angels lifting a figure, possibly the figure of Christ, skywards, heavenwards. And this one is to Mary E. Cook, 1926. A very solid table tomb. On the end we have the name of also Frank Rimmel Baker, 1966, so being used up until a few decades ago. And on the side facing the main path, Jessie, wife of Thomas E. Baker, 1902, and then Thomas Eustace Baker beneath. A nicely decorated monument, although sadly it's starting to tilt to one side in the soft ground. And the name I can see is James Brindley Sherwin, 1924. As you can see, the stones are mostly very old, but like so many graveyards, there's infilling with newer graves where there's a space. This one in front of us is from 1960, Sidney James Lake and Elizabeth Ellen Lake. And then are surrounded by graves from the late Victorian and early 20th century. Over here, because of this shortage of space, they've actually put the newer graves in what was apparently originally a path in the graveyard. Nicely looked after, these graves, with the fresh flowers growing on them, and a lot of memorial notes on this one, all inside various hearts. And this one here with its tulips, a loving mother, grandmother and great-grandmother. And down at the end here, Godfred Sarkodie Yaboa. And as always in these graveyards, there are the Commonwealth War memorials which stand out very clearly. This one here, Aircraftsman Second Class H. Forbes, Royal Air Force, 1944, just 19 years old. A rather apt name, Edward Churchyard of Tottenham, and also of Edward Churchyard, who passed away 1890, 1899 possibly. And at the bottom of the stone there are a couple more churchyards. In this area here you'll see a lot of little stones. It was, or is, a memorial garden, but now people that remembered those that were buried here have moved on, and it's all got a little bit overgrown with these little stones. Now these little stones would just mark the spot where maybe the ashes were buried. These are not actual graves. This one, very elaborate, but the stone has attracted the dirt from the air here in North London. It looks like James Arthur Farrer, 1879, and then Charles Farrer beneath. And under the trees, some more of these little memorial stones for those people that were presumably cremated and now pretty well forgotten, neglected. But amongst them all, one that is remembered. Wood chippings, pebbles, flowers. One of the many is remembered. This stands out in the lighter coloured stone. Monty Herman Masters, 1928, aged just 23. And then further down we have Sergeant OBV, Sergeant Observer Leslie Gordon Masters, RAF Volunteer Reserve, who gave his life for his country in 1941, aged just 25 years. And beneath that, below the holly, I can see Florence and Alfred Edward, who I assume are the parents of these two young men. Another war grave, and again from the Royal Air Force, Warrant Officer H.L. Carter, 1943, age 35. An interesting one here to George Edgar Wythenshawe, Australia Imperial Forces, AIF, killed in action 1917. And then we've got Reg Wythenshawe, 1922, Edward Wythenshawe, died in infancy, interred Burslem, North Staffordshire, and a bit further down we've got Clyde, interred at Brisbane, and a few more of the Wythenshaws. But interesting to see someone who came from the Australian Imperial Forces and fought alongside the British soldiers in World War I and gave his life. Just so many memorials to explore. and read the inscriptions. This one to my dear husband, Edward Charles Collison, 1907, aged 57, and then two children, Lily and Percy, aged 15 months, who died a day apart, 1884. And then their son of the above, who died in 1942, aged 61. And then at the bottom, Elizabeth Collison was 102. An amazing bit of carving on this slab of rock. We've got a knotted rope coming down one side and then the anchor and chain on the other, all carved out of the block of stone. And an inscription down here, Carrie, the beloved wife of Cornelius Coventry of Tottenham, 1881. This one is quite different in the typeface and colour of the stone. This is Thorna Hiskey, 1940, and the wife of the above, Alice Amelia Hiskey. Three matching stones, although unfortunately the ground is proving to be a bit too soft for the weight of them. On the right we've got the best of dads, John Berrett, 1961. Then moving across, Tommy Eden, 1976. And across here, the one that sunk the most, John Eden, who was tragically taken from us in 1995. A very impressive one beside the path, with the kneeling angel and a very large stone cross. And the name at the top there is Adolf Darms, and he changed that to Dawson. Quite common to anglicise the names. That probably happened, he died in 1930, and that probably happened just when the First World War started, so that people with Germanic origin living in this country would often adapt their names. On the side here we have other members of the family. Another one where the ground is proving too soft for the weight of the stone, but a very clear inscription. My dear husband, Lionel Rand, 1929, and then my dear mother, Flora Rand, 1954. A bit further into the graveyard, and there are thousands more monuments to explore, walk amongst. Standing out in the black stone is this huge memorial. The figure on the right is more than life size, and it's George Edwin Spratt and Mary Elizabeth. The graveyard is divided into two parts with a public footpath running through the centre, and that's fenced off. And we're just moving across now into the other half of the graveyard. With hundreds more memorials to view. monument here in the Art Deco style, and we look at the inscription. It's William, husband of May Jackson, 1937. But a nice design. Nearby is another war grave, this time from the First War. E. Ellis, Royal Fusiliers, 1916, aged 33. This one has lost the top half. In fact, it's lying on the right hand side. This is the Reverend W. W. Siddy, for 24 years minister of the Baptist Church in Tottenham. And further down we see it was erected by the members and friends of Tottenham Baptist Church. This large memorial is to the Tottenham Fire Brigade. Plaque on that side saying it was erected by Tottenham Urban District. And round here there are a couple of names, and above it is carved the helmet and the fire axes. Fireman Wilden Hewitt, 1922, and Douglas W. Hillier, 1922. Here we have Station Officer Benjamin Blythe, 1922, and William P. Peachy, 1928. Close by is the large war memorial. On the back wall are the plinths with the names of those who gave their lives. Just one of the plaques, Gunner A. Alger, Royal Garrison Artillery, died 1918. Beneath that we have Pioneer J. Ambost, and then Private W. R. Ampleford. And these are alphabetically arranged from the First War. So as we go along, Campbell's, we'll just have a look at the one on the end. This is Private A. Wickham, Royal Army Service Corps, and Staff Sergeant J. Wilcox. On another area are the names of those who died in the Second War from this area, starting with Aircraftsman Second Class Atfield and going down to, I'll show you the name at the bottom here, E. Zinzan in the Royal Navy. And in an area in front of that memorial are a row of these war graves. One picked at random is P. A. Burnham, Women's Auxiliary Air Force, 1941, age 21. Just here are three very large marble slabs, and in the centre it tells us this is to Bernie Grant. He was a member of Parliament and he died in 2000. I do remember him. He was rather notorious, spoke up very strongly for this area. He's now got a very large grave tomb. Another war grave. Always good to see a grave that's still cared for. Another one in the Art Deco style, and it comes from the 1930s, as you would expect. That was the era of the Art Deco movement, 1938, Caroline Taverner. I'm further into the graveyard, and there's even more graves stretching away almost as far as one can see. Smaller stones, so I suspect a little later than some of those we've been looking at. And you can see over the green hedge there, hundreds more memorials. This is interesting because the badge at the top is for the old contemptibles. Now this was the British Expeditionary Force in the World War I, and the German leader described the army as a contemptible little army, and the British troops took that as a compliment, and they were known as the old contemptibles. Thomas William Heritage, he lived on to 1938. And there's a memorial garden here to the civilians who died in the Second World War. These have been people who died from the bombing that London went through. And on the black plaques each side are listed the names. You have to get quite close to see them, but you can see the names of those who died here in Tottenham. Well, I'm going to leave it there. It's just starting to rain, and it's not very warm today either, so I'm going to call it a day in Tottenham Cemetery. But there is just so much to see. We haven't even scratched the surface of here. I haven't even found all the paths that one can explore the cemetery through. If you've got a few hours in North London, well worth coming up here. Till the next time.